I'm writing those off. I'm not gonna wear that in public. Like, I have though to shoot videos, and I get some stares for that. But yeah, so the towels that I wear, it's actually that's a good question. That's great because it's like okay, that's it depends, right? So hey, I'm a
Right.
tax pro.
Well,
I'm a
Zuri
content
can write
creator.
them
Right up
off.
top. Right, exactly. Zuri's gonna follow 1040. That's so
That's
funny.
so funny. Yeah, I was actually
Yeah.
debating that because I used yours as an example where I was like, "Hey, Duke, welcome to Keep What You Earn. I'm so excited to have you on."
What's up, Shannon? Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So, if you don't know Duke, he's on pretty much every social media platform. I think the algorithm knows I'm a tax pro because they throw me his stuff all the time, and I absolutely love it. He makes. If you guys think I make taxes fun, he takes it next level, and it's really really cool. He does all these skits and stuff. And I gotta ask Duke, where do you come up with some of these ideas for the skits because they're super creative?
Yeah. I know. Thank you so much for the introduction, by the way. Honestly, being completely honest, it's 100% random. It's just I'm either could be on the stairmasters at the gym, in the shower, getting changed, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be so funny. This will be great. And I just write it down from there. But if I had to actually like sit down and come up with something, I'd be like stuck. But yeah, they're all random.
Yeah, and it's there's such great ideas. So if you're not
Thank
following
you.
him, make sure you check him out. His Instagram handle and everything will be in the show notes. But Duke, I just read off your bio in our prior clip, and I would love for you to sort of introduce yourself to our audience
Yeah.
and tell us a bit about how you got involved in this very intriguing and interesting subject of taxes that everybody loves so much. There's always a story behind it. So could you share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, I own a tax firm. We work with content creators, influencers, and entrepreneurs. Do a lot of accounting and taxes for them, and tax planning, help them save a lot in taxes. But I love where I'm at today. But how we kind of got started in the whole tax world. When I was about 15 years old, I did a lot of modeling here in Dallas. I worked with an agency called the Campbell Agency, and there they placed me with different companies and brands such as Frito Lay, J.C. Penney's, Neiman Marcus. You could literally like I remember just I was in high school and I get notifications like, oh my gosh, Duke, I saw you in the mall, and they'll take a picture with my picture with them at the mall. I'm like, oh gosh, that's so cool. At that time, they're paying anywhere between 187 to $750 an hour, so the money is great. Probably didn't need that much money when I was at that age, but it was great. But little did I know, here comes January, February ish, I get a piece of notice, a 1099 in the mail, saying like, hey, this is how much you got paid. You got to go file your taxes. I'm like, what taxes? Dude, I'm like 15. So I had my parents drive me down to H&R Block, and there they taught me a lot about taxes, about write-offs, things I can. Of course, my parents were paying for everything at the time, so I weren't able to deduct those expenses. But it was still very interesting. I ended up owing like $1,500 my first time I ever filed a tax return. So I was like, what? I thought you were supposed to get a refund. So I was always interested in things like that. So fast forward 2018, ended up starting my own firm, worked with like small business owners. I probably had 20 clients at the max. Fast forward to 2020, 2021, I got on social media, TikTok, things really just took off. And now they're probably sitting about 790 clients right now. But that's how I kind of got
Wow.
started with everything. Yeah.
Unreal. And I noticed like in your even in your signature here, you have EA and CTC. So for those who
Hmm.
don't know what those mean, can you just tell us your qualifications there? Because I do love the EA, but it's one of the most unappreciated
Right.
certifications that are out there.
Exactly. So um, EA stands for enrolled agent, and it's something that's given out directly from the IRS. Pretty much what it allows you to do is represent your clients before the IRS in all tax matters. So if you want to think like CPA, EA, CPA is like you have to study accounting, you have to study audits, regs, things like that. EA is just straight taxes. There's nothing other than that. It's just like straight taxes, and that's what the enrolled agent is. And then the CTC, that stands for child tax credit. No, I'm kidding. Um, that's that's
You are a child tax credit.
child tax credit pro. There we go.
Right.
No, that stands for certified tax coach.
Mm.
And really, it's just a program that tax professionals can go to if they want to learn how to do tax planning and tax strategies and create plans for their clients.
So Duke is straight tax no chaser, is what you're saying.
Straight taxes, straight up and down.
Straight
Yep.
taxes. And what people don't realize is that CPAs like me, we have a like it's like saying doctor. There could be a million specialties underneath that
Right.
umbrella. And there's a lot of CPAs, including myself, who like studied taxes a little bit and can do taxes and know tax strategy, but like we are not living, breathing, inhaling,
Yeah,
exhaling
taxes.
taxes.
Right.
And that's why I think the EA is such a cool qualification. So
Right.
don't discount the EAs, guys. You should definitely be looking for
Exactly.
them.
100%.
So on that note, I know that you are really close and you keep up to date because your content is very timely. You keep up to date with the new regulations and the new legislation.
Hmm.
We're recording this in August 2022, and there's a whole lot of buzz, stress, and panic over what they're calling 87,000 IRS agents are coming and like an army with pitchforks. And,
Hmm.
what, there was another skit idea. Um,
Right.
but what's your take on it? And looking at these headlines, how are you reading them and how are you advising clients on what to do right now?
Got it. Yeah, so it's an Inflation Reduction Act 2022. Some people call it the IRA of 2022.
Hmm.
Fun fact is it's probably expected to get signed into law today,
Hmm.
any moment now by Biden. But one of the things that's really sticking out there is the 80 million going to, of course, to the IRS, hiring over 87,000 agents. Now, there's two ways we can definitely look at this. It's you can look at it, oh my gosh, it's a bad way, or especially if you're a tax professional, you can look at it as a good way because if any of you guys work with the taxes or IRS, it's very difficult to get through the IRS.
Hmm.
It's very difficult to resolve, client matters, and even clients. I mean, taxpayers trying to resolve their own matters. It's too tough. I mean, the IRS has they're answering only 8% of the calls that they're actually receiving. The thing is that our population is continuing to grow, but the IRS's work staff, they have the same amount of employees as they had in the 1950s, and
Wow.
yeah, the 1950s they have the same amount of employees, and then. Another thing is their systems is from the 1970s. So since that time, we've had a lot of like automation in other sectors and other businesses and our businesses and our computers, but the IRS's systems have not been updated. So if anything's a paper return or it's all manually reviewed, it's all typed in, keystroked in, and it's just the process takes forever. You're looking at 6 months or over a year if you have to paper file return or amend a return. So the positive things about it is that we could probably see an increase in customer service and response time from the IRS to resolve these issues. This can mean faster refunds. This can mean problems getting resolved. People are less stressed because IRS notices are so stressful. So that's one definitely good thing to look at it. Another thing is that they're also going to increase enforcement, which is the one that's kind of like getting all the buzz and the headlines. And really, the purpose of the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 is one of the main things is to make money, the government to make money, and to pay off our national debt. And so, one of the ways they want to do that is, of course, put a 15% minimum tax on corporations doing over $1 billion, and then increase enforcement because there are there's tons and tons and tons of tax sheets, and then if you file a return, I believe you have less than a 1% chance of getting audited. So um, their whole point is to increase enforcement. So there's probably going to be some increase in audits. So I wouldn't say if you're doing anything wrong, you have nothing to worry about at the end of the day. As long as you're taking care of your bookkeeping, you're filing your returns on time. If you're not one of those people who are actually dodging the IRS or not filing a return or putting some funny stuff on your return, then you are going to be okay. But if you are worried that something's going to happen or that you're doing something illegal or something like that or fraudulent, then that's where we should be worried. But I wouldn't say all these 87,000 employees are going straight to auditing. It's also going to just replace the workforce, increase compliance, increase customer service time. I mean, you should be able to call the IRS and get through, but it's really difficult right now. So that's what
Yeah.
the whole 87,000 is about.
And also, I mean, look at the hiring landscape right now for private sector companies.
Mhm.
It's hard enough to hire one or two people in a couple of
Right,
months. Hiring 87,000 people isn't going to happen overnight. There isn't exactly a line out the
right,
door to get a job at the IRS. Sorry, guys.
right.
But
Yeah.
it's true. Like, it's going to take time to train up, it's going to take time to get these people installed. So there's no need to be panicking right now that you're going to get audited
Mhm.
tomorrow. Nor does an audit mean you're going to go to jail, and an audit
Yep.
doesn't mean you're gonna, uh, get a ton of stress or a huge exam put on you. Sometimes an audit is as simple as like a letter correspondence or,
Yeah.
inquiries and things like that are actually pretty low stakes. I think people dramatize the audits a lot. Would you agree, Duke?
Right, yeah, they're probably audits. You probably thinking worst case scenario, someone showing up at your door banging with a weapon or something like that. But like a lot of audits are just all like automated. Sometimes just a simple letter to your door, and you either respond to that letter, stating what you have to state.
Yeah, exactly. So let's dive into that for a second. The fear of the IRS. I feel like they're perceived as this scary entity, but as you put it, like there's a bunch of people trying to answer the phone, and they're
Right.
overwhelmed right now. What advice do you have for our listeners who maybe are scared of the subject of taxes because they're scared of the
Mhm.
IRS as this kind of villain that it's been, dramatized to become?
Right. Yeah. So that 87,000 employees is expected to spend over the course of 10 years.
Yeah.
And okay, so the IRS is actually some cool people. Like I don't know if y'all, this is how they're perceived, but they're actually pretty cool people as long as you respond. There we have been able to do miracles for our clients, save them tons in taxes, or get something resolved just by simply picking up the phone and calling them. The
Hmm.
IRS is not necessarily bad people. They're only bad when you choose to ignore them or ignore the notices. That's when things get bad. But I have nothing when I deal with the IRS. I typically have nothing but positive things to say besides the long like hold time. But just communicating with them, talking to them. I mean, we've had clients say like, "Hey, dude, you got to pay this in 30 days." We're like, "Hey, man, we don't know about all that. Okay, we'll give you another 180 days, just like that." And it's just all about just talking to them and communicating them. The IRS are not bad people. They are not bad people, but it can get bad or go into criminal if you are ignoring their notices or not and you're not talking to them.
Yeah, the way I advise clients is the most important thing is progress. So they just want
Right,
progress. They just want to be moving in the right direction and they want activity from you and not ignoring it. It's the only way to make a small problem a big problem is to ignore it.
right, exactly, 100%.
Yeah. So how do you advise people approach the subject of taxes and kind of overcome this fear? And I know that you do a great job of this through the way you present it and tell stories and educate. But for those who are maybe resistant to the idea of taxes and go, I don't really like this whole subject, which, congrats for listening to the show if you do.
Right.
But I know a lot of you out there struggle with the idea of taxes and it's a scary thing and a scary time and it's stressful. Share some of your advice that how you help clients through that and what advice you have for those who may be going through that.
Yeah, absolutely. It all really comes down to really education and understanding because what you fear is what you don't know and what you're confused about. So education is a big, huge component. Just kind of not being fearful about taxes, because it's something that we have to do, and it actually stops people from starting their own businesses because they fear taxes. There's been plenty of people I spoke to like, I want to start a business, but I'm afraid of taxes.
Hmm.
And it really comes down to education or working with somebody who can guide you and hold your hand, protect you. In case of not, like I said, they're super rare, but I would say 100% just make sure you're educated. One just good tip is just always to have what's called bulletproof bookkeeping, especially if you're a small business owner, especially if you're taking write-offs. It's just everything comes down to bookkeeping. We have some people in audits, where we may have to recreate records or something like that. But it really, any type of audit, it always just comes down to bookkeeping, having proper records. Make sure you're substantiating your expenses, for like your travel. There are certain expenses that have to be what's called substantiated.
Hmm.
Substantiated means you just need a little bit more extra details, such as if you're eating with somebody. What is the purpose of the meal? Who did you eat with? Where? Time? Cost? these are these are expenses that have to be substantiated, which means you need a little bit more extra details. Also, anything what's considered a listed property, which is pretty much like things like computers and
Hmm.
cars, your vehicle. If you're trying to write off your car, these things are going to have to be substantiated too, which essentially means like you're tracking your miles. That's the number one thing, is making sure you're tracking your miles. So I would say, if anything, study the things that have to be substantiated, and just make sure you're always doing your bookkeeping. That's going to save you with anything when it comes to taxes. Just make sure that's all bulletproof.
Yeah, and you guys have heard me say that before, bulletproof bookkeeping and, the
Yeah,
foundation. Like what Duke's talking about is not some elaborate fancy strategy. It comes down to the basics, the fundamentals, and getting those in on reps so that you're just like, nope, I got this covered. I know that I have everything I need if I ever did get audited, that
right.
you're prepared. That's the biggest thing, is always being prepared, operating like you're going to get audited, but knowing that you're ready in case it happens in that less than 1% chance.
100%.
Yeah. So, Duke, tell us more about the questions you get asked as a tax pro. Like, what are some of the common questions that your clients ask you that you help with? I love asking this to fellow tax pros to know like what's coming across your desk, because I know that our listeners can relate and probably have the same questions.
Yeah, the number one question for sure is, what can I write off?
Mm-hmm.
What can I write off? And that's a question. Always, it just always leads to the answer of being, it depends. And the reason it depends, because this is, it comes down to two things: what's ordinary and what's necessary. So, um, an ordinary expense, what I like to explain it, it's not weird. Like, it's not, because it's so great. It's ordinary. It's not weird. For example, a babysitter who's a babysitter purchasing diapers, that would be an ordinary expense because it's not weird. It's an expected expense in her industry. But if the babysitter was purchasing a lawnmower, some size 12 boots, trying to write it off, I don't know about that. Unless she's babysitting, I don't know, Shrek's kids or something. I don't know.
Or
Maybe
I was
I don't
buying
know what.
diapers for my business. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
what you? I mean, it all depends. But her
Yeah.
purchasing lawnmowers and some size 12 boots for the kid, that might be weird, but that would maybe an ordinary expense for someone who does landscaping, right?
Right.
That would be more of like an ordinary expense. And then necessary doesn't mean like, oh my gosh, I need it. Oh, I need it to survive. Necessary just means that it in some way it helps you produce more income, or it's efficient in your business. Like, it helps like save time. Essentially, what those two come down to. So I would always explain it like that, and then I would get a follow up question like, well, Duke, what about haircuts? Or what about clothes or things like that? Or what about meals? Those are the three things I always have to
Same.
cover after I explain the ordinary and necessary. And so meals is anytime, the only time you can eat by yourself and write it off is when you're traveling for business purposes. Other than that, you're going to have somebody accompany with you, whether it be like an employee, staff member, or a potential client. And then, as far as other expenses, there are some expenses that are so personal in nature that a deduction would be disallowed. So, for example, like, oh my gosh, I gotta wear glasses so I can read and do like that. Well, you would probably have glasses anyways, whether you have this business or not. Hearing aids or haircuts, you'd probably still be getting a haircut whether you have this business or not. Now, let's say you had to get a certain style for a shoot, like you had to get this certain style, and you would not wear that in public. As soon as you're done, you'll like wipe it off, wake it off. Then that's something we'll look into. Like, hey, we'll write that off. Like, if you're like shooting on set, you have to hire a barber in there to come and do your makeup on that set, on that shoot scene or whatever, then we'll look at definitely considering writing that off. But
Yeah.
definitely there's things so personal in nature that a deduction would be
So do you
disallowed.
deduct the bath towels that are the hair for your character?
Right. So that's, I'm writing those off. I'm not gonna wear that in public. Like, I have though to shoot videos, and then I get some stares for that. But yeah, so the towels that I wear, it's actually, that's a good question. That's great, because it's like, okay, that's it depends, right? So hey, I'm a
Right.
tax pro.
Well,
I'm a
Zuri
content
can write
creator.
them
Go ahead, I'll tell.
off.
Right, exactly. Zero's gonna follow 1040. That's so
That's
funny.
so funny. Yeah, I was actually
Yeah.
debating that because I used yours as an example where I was like, maybe that Chick-fil-A meal. like when you went to Chick-fil-A
Right.
and did the video, right? Like
Exactly.
the miles to drive to
Exactly.
Chick-fil-A to record that video, which was very relevant. The fact that you were in a Chick-fil-A parking lot with a giant paycheck. If you haven't
Right.
seen this video, it's great. But I was like, I actually looked at that, and of course, my tax pro brain goes, "Oh my god, there's
Yeah.
so many creative things he can deduct just for doing this video.
Right.
It's really cool."
Yeah.
So, like content creators, like you serve, right? Content creators can get really creative, but
Yeah.
you have to be just be
Yes.
careful with the like pushing the limit on the personal stuff. And the way I put it, and you can tell me if you agree, is let's not chase pennies, like let's chase dollars. So, like we don't have
Right.
to, if a facial or a makeup job is it shouldn't be that important to deduct that one time thing. I'm like, let's focus on the dollars, not the pennies. Let's focus on
Right.
getting the bigger ticket deductions before we roll the dice with something like that.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And that's why I love working with creators
Mm.
because I want myself, but it's just so many more opportunities. Like, oh my God, it's like, it's so many more things that are ordinary and necessary, which I just love. It just allows you to be a creative as well.
Yeah. And on that note, like doing a little bit of like the myth busting, right? There's a lot of advice on tax TikTok, tax Twitter, tax Instagram. There's a lot of these folks who are sharing advice, which I love that you're putting out really positive advice into the world to neutralize some of the stuff that's a little bit more risky or aggressive. Um, there are some influencers, right, who are posting, glamorous vacations and bougie hotels and first class flights and all these other things, saying my accountant lets me deduct all these things. What's your reaction to some of these that are maybe you wouldn't let your client deduct? And are you seeing a lot of this stuff on social media? What's kind of your reaction to some of these bigger, I would say more luxurious or extravagant deductions that are being promoted?
I think it's interesting. Because I have no idea what their entire situation is. I would
Exactly.
say
Yeah.
some words or things get in my opinion, I don't believe anyone purposely just come kind of as a content creator myself that has made mistakes posting videos, where they just got twisted or there was an
Nuance.
assumed. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's just like I was sad I missed that. And I truly believe I don't believe people are purposely doing this. I truly don't believe people are purposely doing that. I think they're trying to get the information out there, and it's either they don't understand it fully, or it wasn't explained to them fully, or they just don't have enough time. I mean, taxes is so hard to explain. Oh
You
my
have
gosh, like
15 seconds or 30 seconds
yeah,
to get
and
something
it's so
across. It's going to be like there's going to be
it,
a fine print that's this big, right?
there's so much. There's so much things that are gonna be missed. So from the bottom of my heart, and I just don't believe people purposely do it, but it happens,
Hmm.
and and it goes out there. And typically, what you'll see is the information that's the more misleading it is, the more viral it will definitely become. And then you have people believe in it. You have people like going into it. So I would say anyone who's like has any questions on something, I would definitely always try to consult with the tax pro because their situation is not just your situation. Y'all don't have the same situation. We have no idea what's actually truly going on. So they could
Hmm.
be, and they could be not.
Yeah, it's like diet
But that's
advice.
kind of like
It's like diet
yeah,
advice saying like I ate Chick-fil-A for 3 weeks and I lost 10 pounds. And it's like, wow, that's so cool. But it's like
yeah,
use this as inspiration and education, but
right,
I wouldn't take action on like a 15-second video. I would take that and
right,
then take it to your pro or take it to someone who knows your
exactly,
situation.
exactly. It should require so information like that should just require you to dig deeper and think deeper and just maybe spark ideas.
Exactly. Yeah. I want it to provoke curiosity. I don't mind people talking about taxes and saying, hey, there's this cool thing I found. But approaching it with a little bit of the curiosity and not just saying, well, this influencer said I can deduct my Louis Vuitton. And it's like, okay, like
Right,
they didn't say
yeah,
you could, they said it's possible. But
right,
but let's talk about how that relates to your situation. I totally agree.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah. So, Duke, tell us a little bit more about how folks can find out more about you. Tell us every platform you're on. I think most folks here definitely start with Instagram, but
right,
where you're the most active, and then how folks can get in touch with you if they want to learn more about your services.
absolutely. So I'm on all social media platforms as Duke Loves Taxes, DUKELOVES. Taxes. I'm on mainly TikTok and Instagram, and then also on YouTube and Twitter as well. Those will probably be the four primary platforms. There's always a link in my bio that you guys can click there if you would like to get in touch with me, like reach out to me, work with me, or you can visit workwithduke.com, and those will be the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Perfect. And remind us again who your primary industries or clients that you serve are.
Got it. Yeah. So our services are best suited for creators, influencers, and entrepreneurs.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Duke, for being on the show and sharing your insights with us. I know I love having fellow tax pros on the show, especially those who are also spreading positive educational messages on social media right now. So just want to say thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. All right. We'll see you on the next episode.